YouTube! Hey, 500 people have subscribed to my videos by hitting subscribe. Or subscribe. I don't remember which side of tone. But anyway, subscribe! 500 people have subscribed to my videos!
Hello Ace, this is RetroTK2 and today we're celebrating 500 plus subs. We'll take a look at the sub count and see the exact date it occurred. Then I'll talk you through exactly what I'm doing for this subscriber special. So let's get started. And there it is Ace, 500 plus subs in all their glory. We got there on the 17th of July 2017. Once again Ace, I cannot express enough how grateful I am for everything you do. All the views, comments, ratings and support. It really means the world to me and generally keeps me making these videos. For this subscriber special, I decided to create a new sub-series dedicated to Bill C16, a recent gender identity bill that got passed on June of this year. Now I know this is a controversial topic and that there are people in my subscriber group that are also members of the LGBT community. There may even be subscribers specifically from the transgender community, which is just fantastic, yes. So I appreciate that this topic in particular might be difficult to discuss without offending some people. All I can say is I'll approach this topic the same way I approach all topics, with an open mind and a hunger for the truth. If you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know that I really do try to go into as much detail as I possibly can with a topic and look at all the relevant information pertaining to it. Hopefully you'll see that my motives are purious. Now you might be wondering why I would choose a topic that is completely unrelated to gaming. Well, that's a completely fair question.
Just a box.
In truth, I recently had to research this topic for a side project I was doing, and I figured rather than let all that hard work and research go to waste, why not use it to create a video for all you wonderful people. It also seems like an appropriate topic, given the recent tweets by the US President on transgender people in the military. I also like the idea of revealing more of myself when it comes to these milestone specials, so this will definitely give you an insight into how I think and approach controversial topics. Now that you know why I'm making this video, why choose this topic in the first place? Well, I myself am a heterosexual male ace, so the actual group being discussed doesn't include me personally. But I do have family members and friends who are members of the LGBT community. Most notably, one of my friends is going out with a transgender woman, so this bill might affect her in the future. I also don't live in Canada, so the bill really won't affect me at all, though I believe that the gender identification discussions and legislation will eventually make their way over here, and that this bill will be used as an example in those debates. Or perhaps they've already begun, yes, I honestly couldn't say.
Gender is socially constructed and performed and is separate to your body. It may align, you may have a female assigned or perceived body and be female, but you may not. I do not present in a masculine or androgynous way because I question the idea that to be non-binary, I have to masculinize my appearance.
Thirdly, the topic itself is incredibly interesting, or at least I think so, yes, and has so many different layers that I certainly wouldn't have thought about had I not looked further into the topics surrounding the bill. I also like to think that I respect gender neutrality. I mean, I created an entirely new noun to identify you, yes, since I didn't want to refer to you as guys. So I, at least in some very small way, show that I personally feel gender neutrality is important. Finally, and probably the most influential reason for my choosing of this topic, is that I'm a big fan of Dr. Jordan Peterson. For those of you who don't know, Dr. Jordan Peterson is a clinical psychologist, cultural critic, and professor of psychology at the University of Toronto, according to his Wikipedia page. He has been pretty vocal about his disagreement with the bill, specifically the legislation that requires people to use the correct gender pronoun when speaking to someone who identifies as that gender. But we'll save all that discussion for later, yes. He is also a fellow YouTuber and just recently Google disabled his channel, which is seriously uncool, yes. He also uploads his lectures for the general public to enjoy. I've watched several of his lectures, yes, and listened to a number of different podcasts and interviews that he has appeared on. Most notably the 2 Joe Rogan interviews that he did, which I would definitely recommend checking out. He has also been accused of being transphobic for his views, though I don't personally believe that he is, yes. Still, like I said, I shall present the information and let you be the judge. In this video I'll be going through the actual bill itself, getting down to the details of the documents that it affects. We'll then check out the Ontario Human Rights Commission's website that seems to be the main source of Dr. Peterson's concern with the bill. As for the other videos, we'll check out the whole Jordan Peterson side of the story, since it does seem somewhat relevant given that he has been the most outspoken public figure on the bill. Then we'll look at a number of Senate hearings on the bill, including the one with Jordan Peterson as a witness. I also want to check out a number of relevant documents that I've found, such as case notes, news articles online, and any other relevant research that will help us get to the bottom of this extremely complex issue. There's a ton of stuff to cover here, yes, and I really hope you'll enjoy it. I really want to hear your opinions on all these videos, yes, so please don't hesitate to comment on them. If you think that it's inappropriate for me to choose such a controversial topic, since this is a fairly light-hearted game development channel, please let me know. Also, if there are any news sources or documents that you feel I have left out, or that you believe would be relevant to telling the full story, please let me know. I'll make a follow-up video showing them off if necessary. Right, now that the big disclaimer is out of the way and we have a very basic outline, let's get stuck in. This is the bill, yes. It was passed on June 15th with a vote of 67 to 11 and got royal assent on June 19. The bill itself amends the Canadian Human Rights Act to add gender identity and gender expression to the list of prohibited grounds of discrimination. Here it makes changes to Section 2 and subsection 3(1) of the Act. Section 2 states, the purpose of this Act is to extend the laws in Canada to give effect within the purview of matters coming within the legislative authority of Parliament to the principle that all individuals should have an opportunity equal with other individuals to make for themselves the lives that they are able and wish to have their needs accommodated, consistent with their duties and obligations as members of society, without being hindered in or prevented from doing so by discriminatory practices based on race, national or ethical origin, colour, religion, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, marital status, family status, disability or conviction of an offence for which a pardon has been granted or in respect of which a record suspension has been ordered. And subsection 3(1) states, for all purposes of this Act, the prohibited grounds of discrimination are race, national or ethical origin, colour, religion, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, marital status, family status, disability and conviction for an offence for which a pardon has been granted or in respect of which a recorded suspension has been ordered. Phew. Bill C16 also amends the Criminal Code to extend the protection against hate propaganda set out in that Act to any section of the public that is distinguished by gender identity or expression, and to clearly set out that evidence that an offence was motivated by bias, prejudice or hate based on gender identity or expression constitutes an aggravated circumstance that a court must take into consideration when it imposes a sentence. This part amends subsection 318(4) and subparagraph 718.2 AI. Section 318 is preliminarily to do with genocide and reads, everyone who advocates or promotes genocide is guilty of an indictable offence and liable to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 5 years. In this section, identifiable group means any section of the public distinguished by colour, race, religion, national or ethical origin, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, or mental or physical disability. Section 718 is to do with purpose and principles of sentencing. And subsection 2A states, a court that imposes a sentence shall also take into consideration the following principles. A sentence should be increased or reduced to account for any relevant aggravating or mitigating circumstances relating to the offence or the offender, and without limiting the generality of the foregoing. Evidence that the offence was motivated by bias, prejudice or hate based on race, national or ethical origin, language, colour, religion, sex, age, mental or physical disability, sexual orientation or gender identity or expression, or on any other similar factor. Phew, again, yes. So yeah, after reading all that, it might be difficult to understand how a bill that's main purpose seems to be protecting people who identify as a different gender from discrimination and genocide could cause such controversy. Well, looking at the Ontario Human Rights Commission's website might be able to shed some light on all this. Here we have a page devoted to questions and answers about gender identity and pronouns. It says gender identity is each person's internal and individual sense of being a woman, a man, both, neither, or anywhere along the gender spectrum. Personal names and pronouns are two fundamental ways we express gender and how others perceive our gender. Traditional gender pronouns, she, her, he, him, do not fit everyone's gender identity. The words people use to describe themselves and others are very important. The right terms can affirm identities and challenge discriminatory attitudes. The wrong ones can disempower, demean, and reinforce exclusion. This is as true today for non-binary gender pronouns like they as it was for the evolution of the feminist movement and the use of the term Ms. or a married woman's maiden name. Is it a violation of the code to not address people by their choice of pronoun? The law recognises that everyone has the right to self-identify their gender and that misgendering is a form of discrimination. As one human rights tribunal said, gender may be the most significant factor in a person's identity. It is intensely personal. In many respects, how we look at ourselves and define who we are starts with our gender. The tribunal found misgendering to be discriminatory in a case involving police, in part because the police used male pronouns despite the complaint's self-identification as a trans woman. This is referring to Angela Dawson, a transgender woman known to many Vancouverites as Roller Girl. She won a British Columbian Human Rights Tribunal case against Vancouver police after being refused access to medical care in jail and referred to as Jeffrey. This is a news story on the CBC website, and it states, Vancouver Police Board has now been ordered to pay Dawson $15,000 as damages for injury to dignity, feelings and self-respect. I want to take a closer look at this tribunal's decision in the next video, so we shall leave all discussion about it for now. Refusing to refer to a trans person by their chosen name and a personal pronoun that matches their gender identity or purposely misgendering will likely be discrimination when it takes place in a social area covered by the code, including employment, housing and services like education. The law is otherwise unsettled as to whether someone can insist on any one gender-neutral pronoun in particular. Gender-neutral pronouns may not be well known. Some people may not know how to determine what pronoun to use. Others may feel uncomfortable using gender-neutral pronouns. Generally, when in doubt, ask a person how they wish to be addressed. Use they if you don't know which pronoun is preferred. Simply referring to the person by their chosen name is always a respectful approach. Doesn't this interfere with freedom of expression? Our lawmakers and courts recognise the right to freedom of expression, and at the same time that no right is absolute. Expression may be limited where, for example, it is hate speech under criminal law. The Supreme Court has also found that some limits on free speech are justifiable to protect people from harassment and discrimination in social areas like employment and services. On the other hand, decision makers have said that freedom of expression is much less likely to be limited in the context of a public debate on social, political or religious issues in a university or a newspaper. In situations where equality rights and freedom of expression must be balanced, context is critical. The words that are chosen matter. The more harmful the words, the further they are from the core values of freedom of expression. Other important considerations are the vulnerability of the group affected by the speech and the degree of impact on their ability to access employment, services and housing on an equal basis. This seems to be the main cause for concern for people such as Dr. Peterson, since the law recognises that everyone has the right to self-identify their gender and that misgendering is a form of discrimination. Although it also says the law is otherwise unsettled as to whether someone can insist on any one gender-neutral pronoun in particular, so I guess it's up in the air. Perhaps not the best way to be when the law is concerned, yes. I personally like my laws pretty concrete, to be honest, with any exceptions clearly defined. But that's just me. The way this document is written comes under criticism in the Senate hearings, yes, so we'll discuss it more in the videos to follow. Adding gender identity and gender expression to the list of protected groups against all forms of discrimination for that group seems to mean that if a professor was to misgender someone, even accidentally, that person could bring a hate speech case against that professor. This also seems to be any social area covered by the code and includes employment, housing and services like education. Presumably services such as fire and health would also be covered by this code, yes. What are the different gender pronouns? Well, according to the LGBT resource on uwm.edu, there are quite a diverse set of them. They are A, heirs, self, A, heirs, self, he, him, his, himself, pairs, self, she, her, hers, herself, they, them, theirs, themself, ver, viz, verself, them, zires, zymself, higher self. Apologies if I am mispronouncing any of them, yes. There are others listed too, such as te, ter, tem, ters, and terself. Again, apologies if I'm mispronouncing any of them, yes. So okay, we've looked at the bill in its entirety and looked at the OHCR's website to see some of the underlying possible issues with the bill being passed. We also checked out some examples of the gender pronouns that a person could identify with. In the next video, we'll look at the case of Angela Dawson and see what constitutes discrimination for the British Columbia Tribunal. I'll also hopefully get time to talk about Dr. Jordan Peterson, but we'll see how we go. And that's it. Rate, comment, and subscribe here, so hope you're enjoying this in-depth look at Bill C16. You can email me at retrotk2@gmail.com with any of your opinions on it. Once again, let me just say thank you so much for the 500 plus subs. It's great having your support and I really hope you know that. Thank you for watching this, and I'll see you in the next video.